What's up, y'all? Jed Ritchie back. I know it's been a long time since I made a video, and I apologize for that. But everything's been so crazy over the holidays, working crazy hours at work and stuff, so I just hadn't had time to make one. But I do have a church service video going up to this evening, so getting back into church service videos. I've been preaching at off churches, so I hadn't been in our home church to record. But I am doing one of those this evening, so I'll be looking for that. And I wanted to make this video on a little issue I had with my truck that a lot of people on the internet are having with this truck. And it seemed like they're doing a major fix on it, but I done a pretty simple fix, and it fixed mine. So hopefully this can help some of y'all if y'all have this trouble. I've got a 2002 Z71 Chevrolet with a 5.3 liter Vortec motor in it. And if I'm not mistaken, these motors started in like 99, the end of 99, and go up to 04 or 5, maybe 6 even. I'm not sure on the years, but the problem is it won't idle when it's cold. You can crank it up, and some people's I just idles rough. Mine wouldn't idle at all when it was cold. I had to hold my foot on the gas. And everybody on the internet and YouTube is pointing out that intake gaskets need replaced, which on these trucks, if you know anything about them, is a fairly big job. And the intakes on these trucks are plastic, so you have to be careful when you're pulling them off and putting them back on. If you do it, or you'll warp them or crack them if you're not careful. But the intake gaskets on these trucks, a lot of people go straight for that. But if you're having trouble with idling cold or rough idle in a cold morning, after it warms up, it seems to smooth out better, which is what mine was doing. First, you need to check and see if your intake gaskets are leaking, which means you can crank it up in the cold if it idles rough, and take some carburetor cleaner or some starting fluid or something and spray around the base of your intake where it sets on the top of your heads. And what'll happen if it's leaking, it will suck the starting fluid in there, and your RPMs will go up. Do that all the way around your intake, front, both sides, and the back's kind of hard to get to, but you need to do that. And if it don't do that, if it don't change your RPMs, then about 98% of the time your intake gaskets are not leaking, and you don't need to mess with them. Check it cold and hot both, because the temperature change could fluctuate the O-rings, then expand and contract, or not O-rings, but the gasket underneath there. And so if you check them cold and hot and it don't change anything, then intake gasket's probably not the route you want to go. There's two fixes. One of them's a pretty simple fix. It's your coolant temp sensor. And what that does is it tells your motor how much air and fuel ratio, or tells your computer how much air and fuel ratio to put in the motor based on the temperature of the water. And where that's located at, let me show you. That's top of the motor. It's right there. If you can see it, right behind the first spark plug on the driver's side, down in there, or right above the spark plug. But right down there, it just screws in the block. But the easiest way to check that, if you got an ohm meter or multimeter, unplug it. And you have to do this while the truck is cold, overnight cold, and unplug it. And there's two little bitty prongs up inside the sensor plug, and you want to ohm those out with a multimeter, which if you have a meter, the ohm setting is the one that looks like a funny looking horseshoe. But anyway, you ohm that out, and you need to check and see what that value is when you ohm it out. The prongs are kind of hard to get to. It's easier if you have a mirror to help you see up in there. That is kind of aggravating, but mine started out at 18 ohms before I cranked the truck up. What you need to do is write that number down to remember it. Crank your trunk up with that sensor unplugged and let it run for 10-15 minutes until it warms up, and then check it again. If the ohm value drops down, then your sensor's good. That's fine. Mine dropped all the way down to 0, but it just needs to drop some. If it don't drop at all or it goes up, then your coolant temperature sensor is bad and it needs replaced. But you can get on the video on the internet, on YouTube, and look them up how to ohm out a coolant temp sensor, and it'll show you a step-by-step video how to do it. But you just unplug it, stick your meter up in there. There's 2 prongs, and read your ohm value. Crank it up. But you have to do that while it's cold now. You crank it up, and once it gets warm, check it again. If the ohm value drops, it was good, which mine did. So that told me my sensor was good. The next thing is there's an idle air control valve that's in the side of your throttle body. So I was going to pull it out and clean it. I just cleaned my whole throttle body, and that's what fixed my trouble. I think what a lot of people do is they pull the intakes off, put gaskets in the intakes, and while they got the intake off, they clean the throttle body, which in return fixes the issue, but they think the gasket fixed it, when in reality cleaning the throttle body does. So all you have to do for that is pop this bolt off right here. This cover comes off and your throttle body's right here. You want to take this hose clamp here loose and this hose clamp here loose. Then unplug your mass airflow sensor, and this air tube will come off. This boot right here, sometimes it will stay on the throttle body, and that's okay, it doesn't matter. And once you get that off, you've got your throttle cable. This is your cruise control cable. That right there just unscrews out. There's a clip that's supposed to be right there to hold it in place on the edge. Most of these trucks, it's already broke off because it's plastic and it gets brittle. But all you'll do is pull this back here, that butterfly back. Your throttle cable comes forward and slides out of the groove down there. Once you get that undone, there's a plug here and a plug up here. And this right here is your idle air control valve. So you unplug this one, and then there's 3 10mm bolts. There's one in the top center, right up in here. I don't know if you can see it or not. And there's one on both sides, on the bottom corners on both sides. They're kind of aggravating to see down in there. But there's one in the middle, one on both sides on the corner. Take them loose. And the most aggravating part is there's this hose right here on your radiator that runs to down in there to the left side of your throttle body. It's kind of crimped on with a special, right there it is. It's kind of crimped on with a special fitting, so you don't want to try to take that off if you can help it. I left mine on. There's a hose on this side which runs right down in there. Let's see if I can set my finger on it. But that hose right there, it runs up to the bottom of your throttle body. See if you can see me. Right there. And it's aggravating to get off of your throttle body. So what I've done is just took it loose right down there with that clamp and slid the hose off of that galvanized tube right there. And then this hose here is long enough you can fold the throttle body out of your way over here and clean it without having to do a bunch of mess. And then when you put it back together, this hose down in there behind the alternator will pretty well fit itself back on. Then you just clamp everything back together. While you got your tube off, I do recommend cleaning your mass airflow sensor, which is this. Get you some mass airflow sensor, clean it, and spray it out real good. But once you get the throttle body off, open and close the butterfly, clean every bit of the carbon you can get out of it out. This is your idle air control valve. It gets corroded on the end of it and it's up in a hole. So what I did is actually pull this out. There's two star head bits on it. I don't know if you can see it or not. One's right there, one's on the back side corner. Pop that out, clean all of that off really good, clean it the best you can. Put it back in, hook everything back up, and try it again. If you still have the trouble, and this right here was very, very dirty, it cannot hurt it to go ahead and replace it. If all of that fails, then more than likely you've got a sensor, oxygen sensor, or something like that causing the code. My truck is given a NOx sensor code, but it's been given the NOx sensor code for some time. And in order to replace the NOx sensors, you have to pull the intake off. So I'm not going to do the intake until I have to. And if you do have to pull the intake off and yours is leaking, you might as well replace the NOx sensors and the harness as well while you're in there. Save getting into it twice. So there's other videos on that. I just want to make that short video, give y'all that little piece of information. Maybe it can help some of y'all out there. I know that intakes is a big job, and especially on these trucks with plastic intakes. So maybe this can help y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Look for more videos to come. Share this, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell button so you can get emails when I post up videos. And thank you very much.